Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube art tutorial channel. I'm a professional artist working from my studio in Essex in the UK and painting plein air in the countryside. Well, I have a commission to paint so I've made some sketches. I've been up to Woodland Common, and now I'm going to put the actual painting down. Doing it in the studio, did consider plein air, but I want to get the figure and the dog correct. I'm using my normal 3 brushes, the large mop, which is a Pro Art Sable-esque. It's a number 8 because I'm on a large piece of paper. I also have a small Dale Rowney brush. It's all worn away, I'm not sure what that is, but it's a synthetic brush, that one. This is a sable mix and a simple rigger. So those are the 3 brushes that I shall be using. See, now the palette, my normal palette, there we go, and with the usual burnt sienna, raw sienna, a cadmium yellow, Prussian blue, but I'm using Windsor blue, very similar. That's the red shade one. Cobalt blue, ultramarine. I've got a strong red there that I use sometimes, not always, but I like to bring a bit of red to the greeneries in my work. And that one is cadmium red. I've got cadmium lemon. I've got light red, burnt umber, Indian red, alizarin crimson. I do have a Payne's grey, but I'm not going to, probably won't be using that today. And that's another cadmium lemon. So that's my mix and my palettes. Now I don't know whether you can see, but I've actually put masking fluid on the figure and the dog. Can you see how it's slightly on the yellow side? That's so that I've now got freedom to paint colour right the way over the figures and the figure and the dog. So now I'm going to start. It's got to be a warm, sunny picture. So what I'm doing, I'm damping the paper completely across. Well, not all of the paper probably, but anyway, let's just see how far we go. It's very warm in the studio. It's the first warm day that we've had for for the summer, really. Had a couple of warm days, but this is rather unusual at the moment. We've had quite poor weather here in Essex in the UK, and I'm going to damp the paper. And of course, because I've used masking fluid, I can damp around or over the figures, and the figures will remain the same white paper at this stage. Okay, right, now as you see, I've only damped around to that area. Now I'm going to put a bit of warmth in the sky, so I'm going in with alizarin crimson. Just fancy that as the warmth. And my sun, in this instance, it's like a very early morning, I suppose, here on Woodland Common, because the sunlight, I'm going to use cadmium lemon, is coming from that side. So see how the way I'm putting in cadmium lemon there. In actual fact, I won't be adding, I don't think, although still early days, I know. And remember, it always dries up lighter. So if you want colour, put it in. There you go. See the way I've bashed that in? And it's pretty normal term, bashing. Well, that's the one I use anyway. And it's nice to have a little bit of glow. And also I'm going to continue that glow in the lower area. So I'm using all warm tones here, because that's what I want to achieve with this colour. And let's just continue with that yellow then, right the way down, as far as the distance and the edge there. There we go. So that's basically first washes. Now we do have a lot of background to come in. So for this background, I'm using raw sienna so it's not too strong, with a touch of ultramarine blue, so we don't get a too brilliant feeling of leafing. See, this is the very distant area, just where the trees are overhanging. A bit more yellow, trying to keep that feeling of summery greens, because that's what I'm looking for. I've got a run there, so I'll whip that away before that spoils anything. Make certain these runs don't interfere too much with the foreground. There we go. Then I'm going to go in a bit more ultramarine now, just to give that a slightly darker sort of feel. A bit of cadmium now, cadmium yellow. That will give me a stronger green. That just helps. This, you've got to remember, this is all the background greens, the blurred images of these background trees that are overhanging. So we don't be too fussy with this. Bit more cadmium, bit more yellow. Sorry, a bit more cadmium, a bit more blue. And sunlight, right. That means that I now need stronger greens in this sort of area, and right in that sort of area where there's sort of like overhanging trees that I can see right in that distance. I have to work quickly because it is very, very warm in here, and in the distance here we've got raw sienna, lovely glow of trees there. That's what I'm looking to achieve. There we are, look at that. And then right in the depth of that I'm going to add the blue, because that's where I want the feeling of distance, and that is where that blue area will come in, just in that point. And one last, I'm going to add cobalt here, because I want that ultimately to be quite a fresh sort of distant colour. Yeah, right. Quickly again, I'm adding now Windsor blue, or you could use Prussian, because that'll give you a very much more stronger green. And this is really for the lower part of these trees. Just a touch there too. Right, a bit more yellow in that. I want a bit more light this side. There you go. That's it. And just a hint that there is some overhanging trees there. This is my interpretation of the scene. This is what you do. You give your interpretation of the scene, and it may not necessarily be exactly what you see, but of course that's the fun of painting using watercolour. There's no need for it to be exactly what you see, because it's your paper and you can do what you like with it, basically. And that's what I really enjoy, the fun of being able to create without anyone sort of saying, well, you shouldn't put that there and you shouldn't put that there. Well, too late, I have. Now, as I come forward, more yellows then for the greens. I've added a bit more water too, just to try and get it to run and work in. I want to leave some gaps. I've overpainted a little there, but never mind, that's not a major problem. Nice warm tone there, and this warm tone will also appear along the bottom edge, perhaps a little there, perhaps a little there as well. All this is going to be overpainted shortly, but we'll bring that round to there, and we'll bring that round to there. There we go. Yeah, I think we can get away with that. Now, cleaning the brush quickly, I'm going to go in with light red, and at the moment it's got a touch of that green. I'm going into that green area so that it kills the light red off, and that is the distant sort of, it's a lot of I'm going in dry, as you can see. That is the very distant area of the wood. It's mainly where you've got lots of dead leafing coming down, that's fallen down and gradually decayed. Now as I get to the figures, I'm enhancing that considerably, because I want that to show up in clear relief, you know, attract the figures to the eye. Now I'm going in with a little alizarin now, and I'm scratching across the paper to try and get a rough sort of gravelly feel. A bit more red now, into a light red, going in with almost neat paint. I want to try and get that feeling that we've got lots of warm tones. I'm actually going into burnt sienna now, because to me that's a lovely lovely leaf-like colour. Not autumn, but leaf-like colour. And I'll tell you where I'm going to put a bit of red, right under the figures there, like that, because I want the eye to attract, and red will attract the figures. And then finally a bit more yellow into that area there, nice strong yellow. Introduce that to that area there while it's still damp, because it gives us a chance to paint, and a bit more there gives us the opportunity to paint later on some nice tones, really. Bit grey there. Good. Bit of blue now. What is that? Cobalt? No, that's used Prussian, Windsor, whatever. Just to pick up there. There, that gives a sense of colour, really. Now, just before that dries, I'm going to start putting in the more middle distance leafing. Don't want too much on the brush for this. There we go, that's better. This is more the softer sort of real sort of smaller leaf. I don't want to get too fussy with this at this stage, but I'm going to use the point of the brush because I like to get the impression of these overhanging branches, and then I'm going to leave gaps too. There, that's it, that's a good start. And I have the same this side, perhaps a bit more yellow in the mix this side. It's vital that that comes up. The sun's gone down a touch, so it may look a little darker, but it's still, I think it's okay. Let me just see if I can brighten that up at all. There you go. Right, plenty of gaps on the outside edge. Now they're probably only branches that overhang from outside the picture, but you just got to get the impression of overhanging leafing, and that's what I'm trying to do with the painting now, which does take a little bit of thinking about. Got some more yellows to come in there shortly. A bit more yellow in this now. There we go. Right, don't want to remove the underpainting. That is the worst thing you can do at this stage. So not too wet, the brush mustn't be too wet, but it's got to contain enough moisture to allow you to lay paint on, rather than remove paint, which is so easily done when you're working like this. There we are. Yeah, we'll sort of like be fairly happy with that. Highly unlikely you'll be completely happy until you start building the rest of the picture up, but with experience I have a good idea where I'm going, and it will all come together. Rest assured. I'm putting a bit of burnt sienna in there now, trying to get a slightly different sort of green, and it will slightly darken that as well, which is what I'm looking for on that side, because that's this is all behind that tree, so it's all associated branches, but it's behind that tree. So let's make certain we soften that off behind that tree. Don't want too much indication. There we are, behind that trunk. Above, yes, but not below. But of course, where we come in to this area and there, yes, just pull that in, lovely. And of course we have another area there that's quite yellow, which I think we ought to show, really, because it does help if you introduce these yellow areas, because it all helps to keep the feel of sunlight. There you go. Now I'm lifting up now, because these shrubs or trees or whatever they are actually lift up, and then we're coming into the undergrowth area. Same with this, just pulling that while it's still damp. That doesn't look like anything, so we've got to make it look like overhanging trees. And then we have a bush effect here. These are all the light areas, just remember that. You know, you're not picking up the dark. This is the medium tones, medium and light areas that will enhance the picture, hopefully, that we can work on later. So there you go, the sun's out again, so let's cool it down a little bit. That is the problem when you have a studio that's got good light. You can soon end up with too much light. And a bit more blue in this mix now. This sort of technique, something that I've developed myself by watching other artists. Now that's always worth thinking about, you know. Right, now behind that figure in the distance is going to be it's going to be a bush that actually stands just there. I don't want too much interest, but I need a little bit of darkness around the figure. There you go. And then so that's going to be dark. Then we've got lights, then we've got darks. We'll bring the trunk in, although I haven't looked at that. Wish I hadn't done that, because I want a light on that, but that's not a problem. Nothing's a problem, really. Now I'm going to mix some darker greens now. A lot of people say to me, how do you mix a dark green? Well, you use a dark blue, which is either Prussian or Windsor or something of that effect. You add, now those that Prussian or Windsor is a greeny sort of a greeny blue. So consequently, if you put a brown with it, it still stays green, goes towards brown if you put too much. Then if you add cadmium to that, all of a sudden you end up with cadmium yellow, a lovely green. Now to start with, I don't want it to be too dark, so I'm adding enough of the blue, enough of the yellow, but I've fully loaded the brush, and I've reverted to the smaller mop this time. Well, that's interesting, because I'm going to start off in this lower area. Now, as you can see, the brush is very, very well loaded. So I want to remove some more of the paint, either on kitchen towel or something to that effect. Oh, that's better. Now, this is the darker areas that are overhanging from more or less the foreground. So we've got the areas in the background. Now this is the area in the foreground. Just like that. Don't forget to leave gaps, because that is your lighter areas. And you've got to make these look like branches, or give the impression. There you go, that's the word, impression. So the bottom of that damp area can in actual fact hang down like that. There we go. So it looks like a clump of leafing, if I can get the words out. Just add a bit more yellow to this now, a bit more of the yellow, a bit more of the cadmium yellow. Yeah, so that's the clump of the leafing. Don't forget to extend that too, because it may be that extends, not just a clump, and it's got to come from somewhere within the heart of the tree. Now what I say normally is the light tones actually hold the most colour, or the larger area. The medium tones that I'm putting on now hold less, and then when I go in with the real dark tones, then that's when we tend to get minimal. Don't want too many. These underpaintings are the branches behind. They're not the branches on top. They're not the main branches. See that little area there, and I've come out into that. See these little patches of light, because that tells the viewer that the light is shining through. I'm going to vary that now with a bit more of the brown and a little bit more yellow, just to give, it'll be a more denser mix because you've got more paint in there, so we've got to be a little careful. But it's always nice to introduce that here and there, because browns do complement the reds. Right, we haven't got a great deal in the lower area of this tree. Right, that's all right. Right, now I'm adding plenty of yellow now, because we've now got the overhanging branches this side, quite dense, but I'm using the point of the brush now to dabble about. I want the light to be catching this, so I'm dabbling about with the colour, because I need it to give an impression of lovely yellowy greens coming across the landscape. There you go. And that to me is the second area of colour after the, well, third area really, because I laid on the soft washes backgrounds. Now I'm doing the then I did the intermediate, now the medium to dark tones. So I'm going to continue with that all the way down to there. Just wanted to show you how I'm scratching away at the paper, and I'm going to do a little bit this side to show a bit of texture on the outside edges. You're more or less rubbing the colour across the paper in a sort of like a rather dappled sort of effect. It's a job to explain really, but to me that's the thing that gives you a more hazy feel to these background areas, particularly there where they're standing up. See the way it's not quite as not like the more bolder work at the top. Now I'm using the same technique working this side. Now we're going to have, that's going to be light, but this is going to be dark, or not too dark, but, and it's going to come up into that medium tone. See the way I'm using that brush to soften that, and that then goes up into another area there. That's fine. You don't want to get too complicated around there, but we'll see how it goes. Right, then I'm going to go in with a bit more water now, because I want that to be soft image in the background there. There we go. So it's sunlit. There you go. And that's sunlit. That's sunlit. Getting the different tones in. That's it. There you go. That's better. And then just pull that, some of that in at the top. So you're nice and soft behind there. I've got a tree coming up there, which will stand at the back there. Let's just give an impression of that to start with. There you go. Not sure we can see that. Now, this is lovely and light. So I'm cleaning the brush. Don't want too much of the blue on there now. Going in with a lot of yellow to create sections within this light area. There we go. Look, rub the brush across the paper. Gives you a variety of sections. Then I'm going to have darks. Just a little bit of edging there. There we go. Now I'm going to go dark. So dark lays in there. That's not all that dark, so more blue, more colour really, all round. You create less dark areas as you go back. Paint back in to create spiky pieces, paint back out to create darks against darks, lights against lights. This old saying comes in particularly well just adjusting the colour again. In this instant I'm going to paint that around the tree this time, just a nice light area for that other tree to stand through, and it's just sort of dappled along like that. There we go, look at that friend of light. This is what I'm looking for. Hopefully, all being well, we can get that to work. Just a little darker there, too dark, but there you go. Pull it up. There you go. Look at that. Pull it up. Don't want that line there too much. Right, now we come into the foreground, and there again, this is where texture comes in, because this is not the darkest, I don't think, or the darker area there. And of course we'll do the same the other side. A bit more blue, a bit more yellow, quite a bit more yellow this side, because I want that to be and it's going to be sticking up. That's it. Lots of spiky pieces this side. Brings that corner close. Don't want to cover too much of that up. Right, a bit more blue, a bit more brown. Now this is where we go really dark. And that'll be in that corner there. One or two little spiky darks. And of course, there will be some touches there, because I'm going to have a shadow running across here. So you always got to look one pace ahead. There we go, and that's going to pull up into there. Oh, I love that little bit of light there. You know, try not to remove any bits of light if you think they're going to be of benefit to you within the painting later on. That's there we go, another little area there, a little area there that's shooting up, always useful, and that's running out of picture. Good. Now to start with, I've pulled in a little closer because we're looking at the trees now, and normally distant trees that you paint in like those there, they'd be cooler and not as vibrant, so quite light, but I'm going to make these quite dark although cooler. So this is the colour I'm using, and when you paint trees, press hard on your mop brush and gradually lift off as you go up into the canopy. And there you can see I've lifted off too much, so I'm just straightening that up. There is another, this branch goes quite considerably, it's still quite wide actually all the way up. There you go. And this one goes off like that and weaves behind there. Now I'm only putting in the main branches. Just bring that down, make that just a little wider. Now I'm going to get a little bit more red to that because I want that to be just a little closer to, feel a little closer anyway, and in the lower area, not as much in the top area, and that one will just be dark until it goes away, and this one, oh well, we'll have it quite dark as we go up, and that'll just be lost. We'll deal with that shortly, and make certain that that edge has a little bit of light on. The brush is just lifting away. Now as it hits the greenery, I want that, I don't want a soft edge here, I want it to be quite uneven like that, because that gives an impression that we've got undergrowth coming up at the base of that trunk. Now going back in with a little bit more blue now, because this one, the one that stands behind it, is going to be considerably lighter, plus it's going to be bluer too, and I've got a feeling that could be too blue, so let's bring a bit of that other colour in. There you go. You can, it was just a little too blue, and let's see whether there's enough red in there. As long as it's quite damp you can work with it, and comes like that. Yeah, that's about it really. I think it comes up to a stop, then it heads down and off into the distance like that. Now the smaller branches will go in at a later date. Now there's no red in that at this stage. I want that to be left as it is at this very moment. So I'm using that process. Now I'm adding a little more red to that, a bit more light red at this moment, just to give it a slightly warm. I don't want it to be too warm, because we have another tree, a weird looking tree. It must have grown at a very awkward shape. It's just a break off there. Quite often out in these unmanaged areas you get branches that break off. And now I'm going to stop now and head off there, because I just want the feeling that leafing overhangs that. What else we got? Oh right, that comes down to there, out to there. There we go. And then we have a branch, whoops, that's gone a bit. There you go, that's better. That's my mule stick pushing the board back. Where does this go? Ah, that heads like that, point of the brush goes sliding off through there. We'll put in the smaller details later on. So that is that. Now we do have sort of a tree that's standing behind everything else. So I'm going very weak, more red, but quite weak in colour. So there's more light red in this, but don't want too much on the brush. So let's see how we can do this. Right, so that is quite a large tree, that. So that, in actual fact, goes sailing off up there, like that. And then you can just about see it again up there. There you go. And that's going to be soft. So let's just use the rigger now just to soften that, because I want that to be soft as it meets the greenery. So I don't want anything to, yeah. See how that one now sits back? Now when I paint this large one here, you'll see how that comes forward. The other one sits back. Now I pulled in again. Now for this one, I'm going to use burnt sienna with Windsor blue. It's mixing in the same part of the palette, because they're all intermixed depending on whether you add more red, more blue, more yellow. It doesn't really matter, that it dominates the mix in the end. And I want the actual burnt sienna to dominate. Now I'm going to paint from the bottom up. It's quite a rugged old tree, right? And as you can see, it's got a bit of warmth to that. See that? And this is lots of undergrowth there sticking up. Right, now that branch goes off up there, quite a substantial affair. Reload. And this branch goes off up there, and this is a very substantial affair. Whoops, don't go offline too much. There you go. And that will naturally stand in front. Right, now this one starts there, and then you don't quite see where it goes completely. Oh, hang on, let's take it to that first there, then it'll break through again there, and then it'll break through again there. Make certain that they match up, because they've all got to match. And then of course there's another branch that heads off up that way, that's joined further down. There you go. And then this one then shoots off across there. That's it. Oh, and there's another one here. We'll try and keep him separate from that one. There you go. And that has less interest. There you go. A little bit of work to be done on those, but nothing too much. Right, now this is where it really gets interesting, because I'm going to use Indian red now with the Windsor blue or Prussian blue. There you go, because this is where we're going to paint in the real dark side and the underside, and this side is going to have a glimmer of light and a little sense of the bark. There we are. And with the brush you sort of like crisscross a little to give a sense of that. Right, now that it then is a main branch, so that holds that colour. Right, so that goes up there. Right, now this is also a main branch which goes off up there while it's still damp, and this is not a main branch, so it will gradually blend. There you go. Nice to see a bit of blending of the two colours, and then of course that then goes up there like that into the canopy and away. we need to pick around certain areas just to give a sense that it goes into that. Don't want just a dead stop. I'll take that right out of the picture. We don't want a dead stop on that. It may even show a bit down one side there like that, if according to how the leafing is. A bit more there. And that goes away. This one will also go away like that. This one will also go away. There we are. Let's join that up with that. Looks better then. And then we have another branch here, which has a very weird sort of kink. It's not as straight as that, so let's give it a little bit of unevenness. Good. Okay. Another branch, little branch that comes out there like that. There you go. Right, we'll do all of that as and when the time arises with our rigger. Just separating. Can you just see where that's separated the back from the front? There's a bit of light just catching there. All those sort of things. And just before it dries, this bark, I'm going to use the rigger to soften that. So I'm going to suggest light on there, but there you go. And all you do then, you take the rigger, slightly damp, and you just lift off colour. So it just gives you the impression that sunlight is cast onto that side there and the lower part. And because you're doing it damp, it will dry up soft. So it's just got a bit of soft light there. Now we have some more tree work to the right here. That's not going to be too strong in colour or tone. There's a tree that goes so like up there, and that heads off up through there like that. There you go. When we have some branches coming over, that'll sort that out. There is a larger tree that sort of heads up there like that, funny enough, which I'd like to include because it is there. And this one is a little larger actually. There you go. Make that even larger down the base. There we go. So certain trees come forward, other trees sit back. Now I need to put in the very dark leafing of the more foreground tree work, and of course the branches that will support them, but I don't know where they're coming until I've painted them in. So let's start at the top here, right? And I've used that same colour, but this time slightly darker. There you go. Just remove that. A bit more red, a bit more blue, a bit darker. That's it. So I'm using the light red and the blue. And notice I'm putting it mainly where the trunks meet the greenery. Can go across in places, but if you notice, there we go, I'm going to take that one across. See the way I'm picking out that technique that actually gives that impression of leafing. So important to get these dark areas in. Well, there's an area there, look, remember that one that I put in as a dark clump early in the painting process? Well, it's still there, you see. So consequently, a bit more in the lower part there you go. So consequently, that helps immensely. And of course, as the brush runs out of paint, you can go to the outer edges, because you do have smaller brush strokes from trees that are over the back, more or less. Some that cross the trunk there, you know, they could be behind, could be in front, not too concerned with that. A bit more blue, a bit more red. It's really mainly Windsor blue and Indian red that's producing these colours. Gonna go tone darker there, because I just felt it needed a bit more strength, particularly right up the top corner. Just in places. Got to be careful. Don't go too dark too early. I have to keep telling myself this, because if you do, then unfortunately you sort of end up with some major problems. Anyway, a bit more yellow gone in, because I want the green to be fresher now, because I'm depicting leafing that's beyond the main canopy area. There, let's just add a bit more water to that. Actually, I'm picking up a bit of colour to moisten it off of the palette. And this we don't want too much of this. This is just sort of leafing in the background. And of course some of the leafing springs across this way as well from there. Don't want to be too blobby right on the outside. So like, whoop, see that blob? That's now got to be made into something. Once it's on there, you can't really do much with it. Okay, that's all right. Yeah, we can live with that. If you get these little problems crop up, don't try not to panic about it. You know, wait and see. We'll put another one there then. It is a bit denser in there, so that justifies that dense petition. There we are. I've more or less brought that in to that area. Right, a bit more yellow. That's it. A little bit coming in there. A little bit, just a touch there. I don't want too much running away into the distance, but there is just a little area there. That's good. Okay, now we've got the lower area to deal with. A bit more yellow in this, albeit not too much water. And that is vital that we don't add too much water. Now there's a dark section there, just where that tree stands up. You've got, when you look at these subjects, you've got to try and pick up where the darks and where the lights are. And there's just a little bit of dark there too. There we go. So that highlights that bit. So when we have light coming across, that will be in sunlight. Then we have another area here that hangs down there, and that comes up to there like that. Nice really to change occasionally. And then I'm going to pull some undergrowth over that area, and there again. Don't want to get too close to that large tree really with that. A little shrub area, you know. We're easy, aren't we, really? You know, it's quite a lot about tone really. And then, of course, there are places along the frontage here, and a bit there at the base of this. There you go, look at that. See the way I've introduced a film of shadow now coming from that tree, and that'll justify a lovely shadow in the foreground. Now I've added more yellow now because I want to attend to this little devil here, the greenery here. You can see the shine on that, so it's a bit of a job for me to add a bit more yellow to that. There we go. Yeah, just got to watch this because I'm finding it difficult to see at this moment. Right, a bit darker. Could do with being a bit darker. There you go. And of course we go over that tree in places. And then, of course, the overhang there could very well have a shadow. And that's not as dark. So you've got a light bit there and then a dark shrub. And that will carry on behind that tree. So that will gradually disappear there. Then we have some little dark touches there. Not too mad with this, but we need enough. But of course we need enough light, otherwise you won't appreciate the dark. You cover all the light areas over and then you are in a muddle. Try to make that slightly different in as much as a bit more sunlight on that left hand side, which I find seems to work for me. There we go. Yeah. Now I'm adding more blue, and this time I'm adding a little burnt sienna to make it slightly sort of we're going to have leafing coming from a shrub, and this leafing is quite dense there, so let's go really dark. Burnt sienna, Windsor blue, fairly dry brush, and we can just about get the feeling of some branches now that are quite dark, that are coming up and out. A bit of a dense area in places, but not too much. And then there's a little bit in this lower area there, one or two little touches there, and all will be revealed shortly. There we go. Yeah, they need stems. That's all they need, and they are bits of undergrowth really. And that's pretty much the view. Now before we look at the figures, we're going to paint in the darker branches, the smaller branches, to these trees here really. And this one, if I can find somewhere to put the mule stick, because I don't want to go on anything wet, should be okay there. And we then have, that's a little heavy, that's a bit more blue and a bit weaker, that's better. Yes, it's fine lines that we tread when we're painting, and want this to be fairly, don't want it to be too much of a major feature. If you notice, I'm trying to play it down a little, because if I don't, then it will dominate that particular area, which is not what I'm looking for. Far from it. And this branch has another one going off there, that then goes off up there. I'm going to produce the same with that, and doesn't have a great deal on that. Don't want to make too much of that, just thicken that up. If you end up with a thick line on the outside edge, unfortunately you're going to have to thicken the branch up right the way through, but I'll do that quite often. Doesn't seem to affect the overall look of it. It just gives us a wider branch coming away. There you go. That looks pretty good to me. There you are. Look at that. Coming along nicely. Now I'm thickening up now, being a little darker now with the colours. In other words, just adding more paint really. to whatever the chosen mix is. And that way you press hard and then you lift off, and then we're going to put another one in there. And let's just pass that up to there. Got to remember, these branches always look for light, and so long as we remember that, there's every chance that we'll get ourselves a decent sort of a painting of a tree. Just darkening this for some unknown reason. Well, it isn't. I want it to stand out against that greenery. I don't want to play with it too much, but how spiky where it leaves that there. That's it. Don't want to do too much to that. Just see where that branch is not really going anywhere, and there would be another branch coming up there. One or two within the canopy that help to give support to the outer leafing. Where they come from, we're not really worried. That really doesn't affect the overall outcome, I don't think. A bit more brown. I'm adding more brown, more burnt sienna as I go along. Don't add too many branches, but I just feel possibly there could be one coming out of there like that, and it hits that clump, finds a space there and goes up there. That's it. Yep, that's brilliant. Let me just secure this board. There you go. I knew there was something wrong with that. Brilliant. Now this is where I need a dark branch, so it's just lots of paint, very little water, plenty of burnt sienna in the mix, a little more water in that. It's the balance of water and paint really. And I'm going to have a branch that heads off up there like that, and see how it goes within the canopy. And because the brush is running out of paint, it's heading sort of, it's tending to run out of paint, and it's a bit more solid there. There you go. And we're going to take a branch from there like that, and that just passes through. I just wanted something to attach itself there to sort of hide that muddle up of tree work at that point. Right, a few more branches in, a bit more, even more red, this burnt sienna this time. Where are we? There's, funny enough, there is another one there which I've not put in, which I think it would benefit from. And if you think it benefits from a particular branch, then by all means put it in. If you don't think the overall composition will benefit, then don't put it in. That to me seems to be, it's going to go in with this with some really dark stuff on the underside of that branch. That'll gradually blend. There you go. Look at that. That's in shadow. All right. And then we're going to pick up with some more burnt sienna, even still, to pick up this area here on the tree. And do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add Indian red now to little touches of that. There we are. Look at that. Now, why have I done that? You may very well ask. But hopefully it will enhance the feeling of shadow work with that pure colour. And I'm going to enhance that, because that separates there. There we go. And that needs to be left to dry while I attend to the left hand side. The second half of the demonstration will be on my YouTube channel next Friday, that's the 30th of August, from 6 p.m. UK time. You can watch any time after that. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in 7 days' time.